Hello there, you're watching All 24 News live from Algiers. Coming up next are the headlines. President Abdelmajid Tebboune receives French Minister of Interior Gérald Darmanin, who is on a 3-day visit to Algeria. Following recent round of Russian airstrikes on vital infrastructure, basic services were being restored in Kiev as locals prepared for the coming winter. Also coming up, top Chinese health official believes China is experiencing the first of 3 expected waves of COVID infections this winter. And finally, you'll be watching in our news, Argentina wins 3rd World Cup in extraordinary style, beating France in penalty shootouts, and Argentina soccer fans erupted into celebration. Hello again and welcome to the program. First in our news, the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, received on Sunday in Algiers the French Minister of the Interior, Gérald Darmanin, who is on a 3-day visit to Algeria. The hearing took place at the Presidency Building in the presence of the Minister of the Interior, Local Authorities and Regional Planning, Mr. Brahim Murad. Darmanin confirmed in a statement that Algeria and France had reached a solution to the visa issues between the two countries. He also announced the joint decision of re-establishing formal or normal consular relations between the two countries. Earlier, Minister of Interior, Local Authorities and National Planning, Mr. Brahim Murad, had held talks with his French counterpart in Algiers on issues related to the interior sector in the two countries.
French President Emmanuel Macron asked me to return to Algeria after his last visit, heading an important ministerial delegation following an invitation by President Tebboune, whom I thank for his warm reception. I had a very rich conversation this morning with the Algerian Minister of Interior. This is an opportunity for the French side to show its willingness to continue cooperation and to embody the dialogue that took place between the presidents of the two countries. I informed the Algerian president that since last Monday, the restoration of normal consular relations between the two countries has been established. Our relations have returned to what they were before coronavirus pandemic, including everything related to visas and exchanges between the two peoples.
In Algeria, still, Minister of Industry Ahmed Zagdar on Sunday received Japan's Deputy Foreign Minister Kenji Yamada, with whom he discussed the bilateral economic relations and the ways and means to develop them, according to the approach based on investment and partnership under the win-win principle. Yamada expressed the interest of many Japanese institutions to invest in Algeria, especially in the mechanical industries, specifically the automotive industry.
Algeria has become attracting all countries, including the state of Japan. There is initiative that there will be consultations and bilateral meetings in order to urge Japanese institutions to invest in several fields, such as the pharmaceutical sector, as well as the automotive industry.
To other news now. The Belgian judiciary issued an international arrest warrant against Mohamed Yassin El Mansouri, the head of Morocco's intelligence services, as part of ongoing investigations into the corruption scandal within the European Parliament. According to the Italian newspaper La Repubblica report, corrupted members inside the parliament and the Moroccan intelligence official were facing charges over attempts to form a vast network within the European legislature to influence and support Morocco's occupation in Western Sahara. To neighboring Tunisia now, head of the Independent Higher Authority for Elections, Farouk Bouskar, revealed that the initial percentage of participation in the legislative elections had reached 8.8%, equal to approximately 804 voters out of a total of approximately 9.2 million citizens entitled to vote, the lowest percentage recorded since 2011. The head of the Independent High Authority for Elections in Tunisia confirmed the existence of a runoff in the legislative elections in more than 100 constituencies out of 161. The United Nations envoy to Libya said alternative mechanisms might have to be used if rival sides cannot find a solution to the country's political crisis. In his report to the United Nations Security Council, Abdoulaye Bathily detailed the political stalemate over control of the interim government and a constitutional way to hold elections, attributing the conflict to the heads of Libya's two legislative bodies, House of Representatives and the High State Council.
The continued disagreement between the individual men, the Speaker of the House of Representatives and the President of the Higher State Council, can no longer serve as justification to hold an entire country hostage.
The United Nations, through its official website, addressed that peace and security will not last in the Sahel region without implementing the Algiers Agreement in a full, effective and comprehensive manner. The international call to speed up the implementation of the agreement was under the essence of what the mediation members called for during most of their meeting. A statement by the Algerian Foreign Ministry had confirmed the last meeting, chaired by Algeria as head of the international mediation, to move forward on the approach of the agreement was emphasized. The statement praised the pivotal role Algeria plays in the path of stabilizing Mali. In this regard, the UN encouraged Algeria to take the necessary initiative to help achieve the legitimate aspirations of the Malian people. Hundreds of Palestinians in Qalandia camp, north of occupied Al-Quds, mourned the bodies of the two martyrs, Muhammad and Muhannad Yusuf Mutar, to the martyrs cemetery in the camp. The two Mutar brothers were martyred Saturday evening after Zionist forces deliberately ran them over near the Zatara military checkpoint south of Nablus. The funeral ceremony started from the Palestine Medical Complex in Ramallah, where the bodies of the two martyrs were transported in two ambulances to their home in the camp, where their family members were waiting for them in the house yard to see them for the last time. To a different topic now, there were peaceful protests in Peru following days of political clashes that have left at least 20 people dead and more than 500 injured. Some of the marchers in the capital, Lima, were expressing their support for police officers and security forces injured in the violence, while others wanted to show their solidarity with protesters who had been killed, injured, or detained. Islam said with the story.
The unrest continues in Peru, puts pressure on the new government, and calls for general elections. At least 2 cabinet members resigned from their posts after the protests. Many of these protesters said they felt ignored by the government leaders, while some of them said the new government does not represent them.
The Peruvian people will rise and defend the popular vote because here we elected the Peruvian people elected Pedro Castillo, but the Congress did not let him do his job.
Nobody represents me now, not Dina, nobody. She only represents those who died. Nobody else. We urgently say Dina Boluarte is not representing anybody, despite being from my town.
Boluarte on Saturday asked the protesters for calm, saying that does not solve the problem and that she had done her part by sending the bill to Congress. The Peruvian president called for MPs to anticipate the elections in order to put an end to the crisis.
No to violence, no to political revenge by some political leaders and members of Congress. They say, let Dina Boluarte resign. Why? Because I am a woman or because they see me as incapable of good governance? They are wrong. I reiterate, the ball is in the Congress court to bring forward the elections. You, congressmen and congresswomen, resolve the issue of bringing forward the elections. Do not look for pretexts. Do not seek political revenge. Look at Peru. 83% of the population is saying that we should all go. So let's all go. Let's not look for pretexts.
Boluarte, former Peru vice president, took office this month after President Pedro Castillo attempted to dissolve Congress. Then he was arrested. Since then, the protests have turned the country upside down, where around 23 people died.
At least 9 Iraqi federal policemen were killed on Sunday after a bomb struck their convoy southwest of the oil-rich city of Kirkuk. The blast took place near the village of Safra, which lies about 30 kilometers southwest of Kirkuk, while 2 other policemen were critically wounded. Iran's Foreign Minister Hossein Amir Abdollahian and his Nicaraguan counterpart, Denis Moncada, signed a comprehensive joint plan of cooperation on Sunday in Tehran, according to Iranian media, that is. The meeting in Tehran was the second in less than 3 months. The two first met on the sidelines of the United Nations General Assembly in September in New York. And following the most recent round of Russian airstrikes on vital infrastructure, basic services were being restored in Kiev on Saturday as locals prepared for the coming winter. A quarter of Kiev is still without heat, but President Volodymyr Zelensky said on Saturday that his country has managed to restore power to almost 6 million people in the last 24 hours.
The main thing today is the energy sector. Over the day, we have managed to bring electricity back to almost 6 million Ukrainians. Repair works are ongoing now. Of course, there is still a lot of work to do to establish the system. There are problems with the supply of heat. There are big problems with the water supply.
Leo Varadkar has been re-elected as Irish Prime Minister on Sunday over his predecessor, Micheál Martin, under a novel rotation arrangement struck between their two parties under a 2020 coalition pact. Let's follow the details with Sam Ayati.
Leo Varadkar was elected Irish Prime Minister for the second time, taking over from Micheál Martin under a novel arrangement struck between the two parties under a 2020 coalition pact. Varadkar pledged to speed up government plans to tackle a years-long housing crisis that cost him a full second term in office and has made the left-wing Sinn Féin clear favourite to win the next election in 2025.
Lascan Corla, I want to take this opportunity to commend Micheál Martin on the leadership that he showed as Taoiseach, for putting the country before politics and for providing reassurance and hope during difficult times.
Varadkar told Parliament that the country faced many challenges and highlighted housing as one of the dominant crises. The 2020 coalition deal, which included the smaller Green Party for the first time, united Martin's Fianna Fáil and Varadkar's Fine Gael, which are Ireland's dominant centre-right parties and have led every government since independence a century ago.
Of nearly 25 years ago, fundamental elements of that agreement, the Assembly and the Executive, are still suspended. Ceann Comhairle, or rather Lascan Comhairle, dreams of a better future are not built on stalemate and status quo. And I want to work with all parties in this House and in Northern Ireland, as well as the British Government and our partners in the European Union, to make progress on the protocol and to restore the institutions of the agreement.
Varadkar indicated he would make very few other changes when he names his cabinet. He's also returning to another familiar issue, the long-running dispute between Britain and the European Union on post-Brexit trade rules for Northern Ireland, a British province with a long open border with EU member state Ireland, but polls suggest housing affordability will again dominate his tenure.
A top Chinese health official says he believes China is experiencing the first of 3 expected waves of COVID infections this winter. The country is seeing a surge in cases since the lifting of its most severe restrictions earlier this month. Zara Farjani reports.
Streets in major Chinese cities were eerily quiet on Sunday as people stayed home to protect themselves from a surge in COVID-19 cases that has hit urban centers from north to south. China is in the first of unexpected 3 waves of COVID cases this winter, according to epidemiologist Wu Zhongyu, who believes the current spike in infections would run until mid-January, while the second wave would then be triggered by mass travel.
We know winter is people stay indoors, people traveling, people have flu season. So all this combined will further put the strains to the healthcare system.
China has not reported any COVID deaths since December 7th, when it abruptly ended most restrictions, key to a zero COVID tolerance policy following unprecedented public protests. As part of the easing of the zero COVID curbs, mass testing for the virus has ended, casting doubt on whether official case numbers can capture the full scale of the outbreak. China reported some 2,097 new symptomatic COVID infections on December 17th.
Since China started optimizing its COVID-19 prevention measures, we've seen a surge in people coming to get vaccinated, especially senior citizens, whether it's for their first dose or booster shots.
Chinese authorities believe the current vaccination levels offered a certain level of protection against the surge. While 90% of the population has been fully vaccinated, less than half of people aged 80 and above have received 3 doses of vaccine. Elderly people are more likely to suffer severe COVID symptoms.
The South Korean army announced on Sunday that North Korea's launch of an unspecified ballistic missile towards the East Sea. This comes days after Pyongyang announced its success in testing an engine for a new weapon system that works with solid fuels. North Korea has conducted an unprecedented number of rocket tests this year, including an intercontinental ballistic missile capable of reaching the United States mainland, despite international embargoes and sanctions.
The NSC Standing Committee members strongly condemn North Korea's ballistic missile launch as a clear violation of UN Security Council resolutions, escalating tensions on the Korean Peninsula and threatening peace and security in the region.
For more international news, let's follow this news in brief with Sofian Kenturi.
European Union negotiators reached a political deal on Sunday to overhaul the bloc's market carbon, cutting plant heating emissions faster and imposing new CO2 costs on fuels used in road transport and buildings from 2027. The EU carbon market requires around 10,000 power plants and factories to buy CO2 permits when they pollute a system central to meeting the EU's target to cut its net emissions 55% by 2030 compared with 1990 levels. Dresden police and prosecutors said on Saturday in public statement most of the jewels stolen from a historic Dresden art collection in 2019 in $120 million. Heists are currently under examination. According to the Turkish Disaster and Emergency Management Authority, a magnitude of 4.2 earthquake struck Turkey's southern Hatay province on Sunday. The quake occurred at a depth of 11.67 kilometers at 9 p.m. local time. No details were disclosed by the agency about casualties or damages. Record snowfall has hit Moscow on Sunday, with dozens of flights in the airport of the Russian capital delayed or cancelled and traffic jams appearing on the roads. The height of snow cover on Sunday reached almost 40 centimeters, which is the most amount of record for this day since 1989.
Argentina won their third World Cup in extraordinary style on Sunday, beating France 4-2 in penalty shootout after Lionel Messi scored twice in a 3-3 draw that featured a hat-trick for Kylian Mbappe. As the holders recovered from 2-0 down for 80 minutes, it was an incredible night of drama and fluctuating fortunes, delivering one of all-the-time great finals to cap a wonderful tournament. And Argentina soccer fans erupted into celebration after their soccer team beat France, winning the World Cup for the third time in their history. Fans were overjoyed as they embraced friends and strangers, cheering for the team during a dramatic match, delivering one of the all-time great finals to cap a wonderful tournament. Thousands of people gathered at a fan zone in Buenos Aires to watch Argentina's World Cup upset over France on a big screen and broke into wild celebrations. And with this, our news comes to a close. We'll leave you with this beautiful live footage of the World Cup celebrations from Buenos Aires. Till next time, take care.